Hello, welcome back to The Reading Mama. My name is Heather, mama of 8 and avid reader, very much into a fiction fantasy phase, but I read quite eclectically. And today I'm going to wrap up my March reads. I do have a mid-March wrap up in a previous video, which I encourage you to check out if you want to know those titles. I will list them briefly. But I read 25 books this month. I know, it's insane. It's a lot of audiobooks, guys, okay? A lot of audiobooks. And to my shame, I did not finish several that I wanted to this month because I was lost in other books. But I'm going to share all of those with you, and I'll try to go as quickly as I can. As always, if you have a question about one of the books that I don't answer, let me know, drop it below, and I will try to tell you. So in my mid-month wrap-up, I talked about A Wrinkle in Time and a Wind in the Door by Madeline L'Engle and how I'm trying to work through that series, loving it. I know that at some point in my life, I'm going to need to go back and reread those and deep dive because they are just so rife with information. Also, some other middle grade novels I enjoyed were, by the middle of the month, were Anya and the Dragon, great historical fiction fantasy. Saving Sky, not recommend, dystopian middle grade. Dreamkeeper Saga was iffy, whatever the first book is called, I can't remember. And I don't have it with me, but The Outsider, a retelling of Ruth, which was phenomenal. And then non-middle grade books that I already tell about in that previous video were Beneath the Silent Sky, which is a adult fantasy, The Healer's Apprentice, which is a YA fantasy fairy tale historical fiction retelling from Melanie Dickerson, The Prison Healer YA fantasy, and Dust, which is a YA fairy tale retelling of Peter Pan. So those, if you want that, you can go back there. And I'm using my little thing. Hopefully I have all my books here. We'll see. I'm gonna go through, I'll start with the two books I DNF'd this month. So I'm trying to read a nonfiction a month, and I did not finish a nonfiction this month. I made it probably 75% of the way through The Violinist's Thumb by Sam Keen. And if you remember in one of my previous videos, I talked about The Disappearing Spoon and how much I loved it. It does have some anti-Christian things, so, but it's a science book, so as a young earth Christian, I take that with a grain of salt. Violinist's Thumb, it was just so rife with things that I disagree with, both theologically and scientifically, that I just couldn't keep reading it because it was annoying me. And so I think Sam Keen has a good way of writing in general, but I feel like he was trying to make certain stories more scintillating than they really are, with ways he says them and just vulgar and inappropriate kind of stories, and he's very sensationalist in his writing of science history. And this is like the science of DNA is what The Violinist's Thumb is. And I knew it was going to have a lot of things that I disagree with personally and scientifically and theologically, but it was just some of the vulgarity of how he speaks about certain things, and then also just the things I just flat out disagree with, that I had no interest in reading more. So I DNF'd that. I also DNF'd Son of Charlemagne, and I'm sad because I bought this, but I'm going to be giving it away, putting in a free book thing. I don't think that there is anything wrong necessarily with the book. The reason I DNF'd it is because I was pre-reading it for school, and it has some theological things that we we disagree with, and I'm not going to get into that on here because I'm not a political person. I'm not going to get into religious things. I just disagree with some of the things that it shares about Charlemagne, and the things it glorifies do go against what we believe, and so we won't be using this for our school, so I felt like there was no reason to keep reading. But the writing was decent for what I read from. So those are my DNFs. Now on to my middle grade books, because it was middle grade March, right, friends? So I'm going to say my favorite middle grade novel for last. Oh, I do have them. Here we go. So these are the ones I talked about in the last video. So Wrinkle in Time, The Outsider, and Dreamkeeper, The Dragon and the Stone. That's what it was called. And then I also read The Book of Three. I actually switched over to reading this with audiobook, and the audiobook was phenomenal. Great reader. I forget what his name is, but he did all the accents and things and really made the story come alive, and I really love that. I don't know if I'll continue the series. It was interesting, but was it like my favorite? Not necessarily, but I did enjoy it. It's just not, it wasn't captivating enough for me to continue the series at this time, which, yeah. Other books that I finished, and I should have it here, but I don't. It's called The Elephant Thief. This was a read aloud I started with my kids last year. Oh, I guess I should tell you about this book. So in this one, you have a fantastical world, and you have young Taryn, who is the assistant assistant pig keeper, pig's assistant keeper, pig keeper assistant, something along those lines. And basically, his pig can like tell the future. And so it's like a big deal. You got to take care of this pig. But the pig gets away. And then he goes on an adventure to try to find the pig. And he falls into a whole war that is going on that he didn't know outside of his hamlet. And he is sucked into a lot of big adventures. And it has some really great points in it. Very much, I don't know what it reminded me of specifically, but it was fun. It was a fun book. But then I finished The Elephant Thief with my kids. It was a read aloud that we started last summer. No comment there. It was a great historical fiction. The Elephant Thief follows a young boy who becomes named Danny. He had no name until this story takes place. And Danny is just a street urchin, and he's had a hard life, and he's a mute. And yeah, he basically gets caught up in this grand scheme of this menagerist who has bought an elephant from a person who died, and there's like a whole jewel heist thing going on as well. But the whole goal is to get the elephant from Edinburgh to, why can't I think of the town? They're going from Edinburgh to another place in the United Kingdom. And they make this bet with this other menagerist that he can make it in so many days. And Danny, he dresses up to pretend, because he has darker skin, so he pretends he's a prince from India, and he speaks no English, even though he understands English well. And a lot of crazy things happen as people and different groups are trying to find the jewel heist that came from the man who died, who owned the elephant prior, but also who are trying to stop the the elephant race along the way. And so you have a lot of things going on, and it was just so sweet. There is some like intense moments, not too intense. I didn't feel like any of my kids felt like, ooh, this is too much for them, but my kids also read a little bit more intense books than some, so maybe pre-read if you have a really sensitive reader. But we really love the story of Danny and his kind of coming to accept this found family that he's found himself in, and the relationships and trusting people and learning to love others. And it was a really beautiful story, and it is loosely based on an actual event. Like there really was an elephant race, so to speak, but it wasn't a race. Anyways, and that was phenomenal. I also read the Witchwood. I listened to Witchwood by Tahara Mafi, which is a sequel to Furthermore. Furthermore was a middle grade Tahara Mafi book that was just like wild Alice in Wonderland retelling in a totally fantastical world, and just they have different colors and magic, or color magic, and different other kinds of special things going on. It was very fantastical, very silly, very whimsy-esque, and had a lot of fun in it, along with a serious story as she tries to rescue her father. Witchwood has those same characters coming, and so now you have Alice, who's going to try to do her yielding, that doesn't sound right, whatever, she's giving her gift to show that she can be useful and help someone. And they end up in Witchwood, where they are helping the I forget what the name is. It's very much a Persian mythology kind of going along with this, because it's the keeper of the dead, and so she prepares their bodies and their souls to move on to the afterlife. And she's the main character in it. Why can I not think of her name? This is terrible, but she is really struggling. She's left alone. She's orphaned basically, and things just go haywire. It was a lot darker than I would hope for. I would not give this to a kid. It was very dark, very kind of demonic, because it's using that Persian mythology. So like if you're okay with understanding the Persian mythology, I would recommend it. Very much reminded me of some things that happen in The Ember and the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. Kind of mythology because of that, because it has a Persian influence, which is very interesting. Again, Tahara Mafi is just an amazing, beautiful writer. I wish she didn't have some of the spice in some of her other books, but in her YA books, but she has just a beautiful way of writing, and there are so many great, deep things in Witchwood that were beautiful, beautiful points of, again, trusting in others and learning that you can't do it all yourself, and and that it's okay to ask for help, and dealing with some topics of depression and things like that. And it was really beautifully done. I was bawling through parts of it. I really didn't expect to be bawling in that story, but it is beautiful, but it is very dark and deep. So as an adult, take that into account. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for children, which is what it's geared towards. And then I read the middle grade March buddy read, which was Max and the House of Spies, which is a historical fiction. And he's got like two Jewish fantastical creatures on his shoulders who are kind of telling him information. Like one is the spirit of Germany and one is the spirit of Jewish people, I think. I don't remember. I didn't love it. Like the story was interesting. Max is growing up in Germany, and he's going on the kinder transport to England, and he finds himself with a wealthy Jewish family in England, and he's trying to find out, growing up in Germany, okay, wait, are these the people that the Nazis were telling us about in class? The rich Jewish English people who trying to take over the world? I don't remember that. And all these things. And then at the end, he's starting to train as a spy to go back into Germany, but really secretly he's trying to find his parents. And it had some cute, funny little things in it, but it was not a super compelling story to me. And I felt like the creatures here were just added on for no reason. The creatures on his shoulders who are always with him. And somebody pointed out that, maybe it gives kids the background information that they need so that they can fully understand what was going on in World War II if they didn't know anything. There's much better ways to do that. I have read so many World War II historical fiction books. There are so many better ways. I've read a whole bunch of kids become spy books, and they're done much better. I was not impressed with this story, and I will not be continuing it. I also finished a read aloud for my family, which is The Luminous Life of Lucy Landry by Anna Rose Johnson. I really love her stories because they are so sweet. They're almost saccharine. They're not in a bad way though. They're very sweet, innocent. This is what you're going to give your early elementary, middle elementary kids if they're going to read alone, because there's a few intense moments, but in general, they're not super intense. Nothing too grave is happening. But there is some adventure, and there's just sweetness and love, and it is beautiful. And there's little nuggets of Christian belief in here. But I also love this one, and then her other book, which is, why can I never remember? The Star That Always Stays? Yes, The Star That Always Stays. Also similar, have some Ojibwa information in there, and I really love. I didn't find out until halfway through the book. There is a glossary in the back and how to pronounce the words. So Anna Rose, if you're seeing this, please put that at the beginning. Because I didn't know that was there until halfway through the book. And it really helped me to try to say some of these words, and even the French words. But I really love it. So in the story, you're following Lucy Landry, Selena Lucy Landry, who has a very Anne of Green Gables vibes. She has been orphaned and is now sent to live with this large family living on a small island in a lighthouse. And she's learning how to deal with that through her big imagination and all these things going on. At the same time, she has this story. They're right in Michigan, up in Michigan area on the Great Lakes, and her father went down in one of the boat accidents there, which the Great Lakes, if you do your research, if you're not from the Midwest like me, and maybe it's not as familiar, there are some really treacherous waters because of all the storms that come through. Anyways, there's been a lot of shipwrecks, and Lucy's father has talked about this one shipwreck where a diamond or a ruby necklace has gone missing, and he found the message in the bottle from the ship. And so it's always been this lore that there's this missing necklace that's going to come ashore at some point. And so all the people are excited about it, and Lucy wants to find it. And so all of that goes into it. So you have that little mystery, but it is just so sweet and so beautiful. And again, this is a child learning to trust new people, to find her place in the world in a new family, and understand that she can just be herself. She doesn't have to be anything unique and wild. She can just be her, and that is special enough. And it is just super sweet. And then my last middle grade book that I'm going to share is Harlow Morgan and the Sky City by Lindsay Llewellyn, and it was beautiful and phenomenal. I absolutely love Lindsay Llewellyn. I have recommended her YA series, The what is it, Chaos Grid and Crierstone. Really loved it. This is her first middle grade book, and it did not disappoint. It says a middle grade steampunk adventure, and that is totally what it is. So you follow Harlow Morgan and her twin sister, and they are growing up in a city where there is magic, but it has been kind of outlawed in their area. Everybody looks down upon anybody who uses magic or anything like that. They've been pushed away. And in their kingdom, in their city, their science reigns supreme, okay? And she is doing her best to impress her father. She feels like she's never enough. Her mother has gone missing many, many years ago when she was a child, and she was very heartbroken about that. And her father is like this head honcho in the government, and she feels like nothing she does is ever good enough. And that is kind of something that goes throughout the story, and it has such a great ending. And cliffhanger as well, but because this is book 1, as you can see, I don't know how long the series is going to be, but while they're at school, some new kids from a kingdom that's been closed off for a long time somehow are now attending the school, and she was told to show them around. Things happen, they become friends. I don't know what else to say. She somehow, there's like magical objects that are lost in their kingdom that they need to find, that are somehow going to help the entire world. This does have some little Christian nuances in the background, but this is still a very fantastical world, just with kind of those Christian nuances, and a cultivator, a creator, who's in charge of it all. I don't even know how to explain all of it. But they go on an adventure to try to find all of these different objects, and so that's what you got the picture of here on the front. I'm pretty sure Lindsay designed the cover. She's an artist as well, and it is just beautiful. But I highly recommend it. Can't wait to see how the rest of the series goes. All right, on to my YA and grown-up books. So YA, I finished the Kara Swanson's Dust and Shadow, and I did that as an ebook and really enjoyed it. It was very dark, very deep, because if you remember when I talk about Dust, it gets into a lot of concepts of depression and things that go along with that, like self-harm and things like that. And Shadow continues on that trajectory of exploring those concepts, but from a very beautiful light triumphing over dark perspective, and it was phenomenal. Then I finished Wishdress by Nadine Brandeis, and I'm really enjoying reading Nadine Brandeis's books. They're very interesting. I also read Fox by her, vastly different from Wishdress. They're both fantasy books. Wishdress is a young girl who was born with the power to grant wishes through her tears, but her grandmother kind of like cuckolds her, like she just kind of keeps her, I mean, that's not the right word, she keeps her secret, and she hoards all that magic to sell, and things happen. There's an evil, like so many things going on, because I don't even know how Wishdress to explain. And so basically she tries to break free from her grandmother. Other people find out that she's the Wishdress along the way, and her whole point is trying to hide that because she's afraid people are going to use her. And that's her whole story, her whole life is people are going to use her. And that's what she's afraid of. She feels like some of her wishes have done irreparable harm, and so she's afraid to use them without guidance. And then she meets a young man who has a magical power to stop time and travel through the stopped time. And he's dealing with all these big kingdom things and trying to help make these magical powers be available. I'm trying not to give away the ending, but magical powers be available to all in the kingdom. And eventually they team up. There's a little romance, very clean, nothing problem. And there's a big, not battle, but there are some intense moments and things between the rebel forces and the kingdom forces, and who really is good and who's really bad, and all of these things going on. Her other book, Fox, which I also read, is really weird. Taking the story of Guy Fawkes, who tried to blow up Parliament in England, in like the 1600s, and it takes that but adds magic. So that's like the premise. And so the young son of Guy Fawkes has part of a color school because it's color magic, and he's supposed to be graduating where he gets his mask, which will allow him to use color magic. And his father says, I will not come, because his son has the plague, which turns them to stone, and he only has it in one eye, and it's spreading, so it's not a problem, but it is a problem. And his son goes back And Thomas goes and joins his father in London, and he gets wrapped up into the plot to take out Parliament. But then he meets some people who are inside Parliament, and he realizes, okay, maybe it's not a cut and dry, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. Maybe this isn't the best situation. How do I deal with it? But I'm all caught up, and I want to be with my father, and I want him to give me my mask so I can use my powers and all of these things. But again, we follow a linear of light magic conquering the dark. And so it was very interesting. I really loved Fox. I also finished the Prison Healer series by Lynette Loney. So I read The Gilded Cage and The Blood Trader, which continues the story of a young girl who, I can't really talk about those without giving away what happens in book 1. It was interesting. I really enjoyed the series. There were some places where it was a little bit more spicy than I would recommend. I wish writers would stop that, because it was very good. And the reason I kept reading is because it was sold as this is a clean book, but it had a little bit more than I was really comfortable with. I don't know that I'll be reading more Lynette Loney because of that. But the overarching story was very interesting. You can go back to my Middle Grade March to find out what happens in book 1, and just know that it continues following her story. Book 1 has a big cliffhanger, which makes you really want to read book 2. If you're going to do it, just keep that in mind so that you can skip certain scenes. And then I read Assassin of Fire and Ice by Mary Meacham, which is one of my 3rd or 4th Mary Meacham book. It was okay. It was cute. It was fun. Silly banter. It was a little absurd. It was one of those that's like a quick fun read to when you've been in something really serious to move on. Kind of palate cleanser, if you will. But basically you have an assassin of one kingdom, and the other kingdom that they've been in war with for hundreds of years has said, okay, we're going to do a peace treaty. We just give us a bride. Send one of your women over here. She'll marry our prince. We'll call it truce. We'll exchange prisoners. It'll all be good. So the assassin send one of the women assassins to be that bride, because then if they default on the loan on the peace treaty, then she can just knock out her husband and no big deal. And of course she falls in love with him in real life and realizes he's not the evil person he was, and neither is the kingdom, and there are other nefarious things going on in the background. And again, it has some strange magics, like the prince that she's married is a phoenix, so he has magical powers, and sometimes when he gets angry he lights himself on fire. It was interesting. It was not my favorite, but it was a fun quick read, and it was perfectly clean, some cute banter and all that. I also finished the Tuscaloosa duology. I forget what the first one is called. Line Between, maybe. And the sequel was called A Single Light. I did that audiobook. Really enjoyed it. I love the conclusion to it. Again, though, Christian authors, they don't need to have inappropriate relationships before they're married. Just saying. It doesn't give you details on any of that, but it hints at it, and so it's just annoying. But it was a great dystopian, for right when things are falling apart, what would happen and what would the trajectory be. So when you finish the first book, they've been sealed inside a silo for 6 months, and when you start this one, they're in the silo and things are happening, and it goes a little haywire, as you would expect with people who, this is not people who have all worked together all their life towards being in the silo. No, this is just the first random people who showed up at Noah's farm, and he's like, all right, you get in there. Now we're at our cap. There's a murder, there's devastation, there's a huge twist. And then of all this, before they get out of the silo, which is only the first couple of chapters, and then the doors to the silo open early, and all the people who are supposed to meet them when they come out are not there. No trace, no idea what's going on. But the funny thing is, when you read it, it's one of those that it's kind of like the Indiana Jones, where if he hadn't gone after the Grail and done all that, they would have still killed themselves. They still would have died from the Holy Grail, so it doesn't really matter. And Indiana Jones is totally irrelevant to it. It's kind of what felt like Winter's Journey was in A Single Light, because in the end, had she not done any of that, had she just stayed where she was supposed to, it all would have ended up the same way. So whatever. And then finally, I have A Bond of Briars, which is my favorite book of the month, which was by Erin Phillips, which is a Ruth retelling. We're gonna say it's a Ruth retelling. This is not it is a Ruth retelling. It had some amazing parallels. I studied the book of Ruth while I was reading through my Ruth retellings this month, and I really loved the little snippets. But this is a dark fantasy. And I feel like it was set in like a place that would be like Ireland or Wales or Scotland. And so I read everything in an Irish accent. I don't know if it's supposed to be, but yeah. So you follow, I'm going to call her name Katrin. And Katrin is the Ruth character, and her husband has died, and she's following her mother-in-law back to another country. Well, Katrin is a person who does magic with spirits, and she's bonded to one. Well, the country she's going back to, that's illegal. It's wrong. She can't perform magic. She'll be hunted down, all these things. And so things happen. And so you have that fantasy aspect of it with all of the Ruth things beyond it. And so it was such a beautiful story. I really love Erin Phillips' writing. Her books are ones that I can't put down. It's like, I'm like, one more chapter, and like, oh, just maybe another one and 2 or 3, and now it's 2:00 in the morning. And so I really have enjoyed her writing, but when you tell somebody it's a Ruth retelling, just know this is very much a dark fantasy first with inspiration from Ruth, because this is not a strictly biblical retelling. Which brings me to the books I'm in the middle of and did not finish, and I'm very shameful for. I did not finish Tessa Afshar's In the Field of Grace, which I wanted to this month. I just didn't get around to it. Like I've said before, sometimes physical books are hard for me to pick up. I did not finish. This is a Ruth retelling, and I love Tessa Afshar. I just haven't had time, so it's first up for this month. I did not finish Count on Monte Cristo. Go figure. I talked about this in another video. I did make a decent dent in it though, and I'm enjoying it. But it's one that I can't be interrupted a lot when I'm reading it. So such as life. And then I have Night Shadows by Marcus Bittner, which is Chantel Riedalday's indie book club, and it has taken me a while to get into it. I am now, I think maybe chapter 8, 9. I said I'd give it to chapter 10, and around chapter 8 it started getting a little interesting, and then I got interrupted yesterday when I was trying to read more. So I'm going to give it to chapter 10 before I DNF, but it's starting to pick up, so hopefully it'll keep that momentum. I think I was just getting lost in the world building, and some things felt a little redundant. I think it might be the author's first book. So, there's sometimes signs that it's their first book. I digress. Anyways, but I'm really enjoying it. It's just taking me a while to get in. I'm really enjoying it now that I'm getting to understand a little bit. And then also, I was going to read this giant stack of Michael Morpurgo books that are all retelling. So I have Robin Hood. I have King Arthur. Oh dear. I have Joan of Arc. I have Beowulf. And I have Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. And those are all pre-reads / part of my perfect pairs, and they're from the library, so I'll get to them eventually because they have to go back eventually. I started the Robin Hood, and it was a weird start, but it has some really neat art in it. But it's also kind of weird and creepy because I don't really understand what's going on, because we just found like Robin Hood's bones and you could like see things, and maybe somebody traveled in time. I don't know what's going on here. So it's confusing. And it's also a large book, which makes it hard to read. Like I can't hold the baby and read this, so that makes it tricky. So I thought I'd hop on real quick because I forgot to share one more story that I read, which is a short story from Brandon Sanderson's Arcanum Unbound, which is Mistborn Secret History. And it's just a short story that continues that. So that's a group of short stories that talk about his Cosmere. And I didn't enjoy it at first, and it was like really suffering through because huge spoiler, if you have not read Mistborn and are planning to read Mistborn, skip until later in the video, or just be done now. I'll actually put a little timestamp here where you can skip to, because it's spoilers. You have to have spoilers because it's Mistborn Secret History, and it follows Kelsier and gives you some of the background information on what's going on in Well of Ascension and Hero of the Ages. And I struggled because I haven't forgiven Kelsier yet. I have not forgiven him from the very first book and the Final Empire. So yeah, that's a me problem. But I enjoyed the story, kept reading, even though I was mad and didn't really want to know more about Kelsier. And then it got to the parts of Well of Ascension, the end of Well of Ascension and into Hero of Ages. And when I'm trying to be as spoiler free as possible, but his love for Vin, oh my goodness, it just melt my heart, break my heart. And what happened and his role in all of that at the end, just it was beyond. It was beyond. And yeah, I'm still not well. So Brandon Sanderson, I still haven't. I put it off reading this because I was not. Hero of the Ages really destroyed me. Like, the ending of the first Mistborn trilogy is devastating, and I was afraid to pick it back up because I knew it would devastate me again, and it did. It did. You think, great, it's just gonna be some high fantasy, fun adventure heist story, and no, it just speaks to your heart and your soul, and you get invested in Vin and Eland, and I've forgiven Kelsier now that I have the background and the secret history, but oh my goodness, it was devastating. So yes, I did finish that, and I do enjoy it, and I do recommend it. A lot of people say don't read it until later after you've read the second Mistborn series. I don't know that there's really any spoilers for that, or much spoilers for that, because I haven't read it yet. But I'm not too worried about it. I'm kind of following the Lost Book of Jess on Instagram. I'm following her reading pattern of the Sanderson Cosmere. And so that's why I read that one next. And yeah, so now I'm on to Warbreaker. So that's what's going on in March. This was a longer video than I'm sure any of you really wanted it to be. But if you made it to the end of this, drop me a little shamrock or a book emoji. Let me know that you made it. And thank you so much for watching, and have a great weekend.